Blessings, everyone. For those of you who don't know me or don't know of my capacity, my name is Kyle Metzger. Some of you know me as Reverend Aphren, or sometimes Reverend Kyle Metzger. I am the High Priest of the Four Pillars Proto-Temple, which is an organization affiliated with the Karelian Nativist Church. So I'm coming to you today because I want to talk about World Goddess Day. And so I'm sharing this video on my personal Facebook page as well as in my temple page because I want everyone to have the opportunity to learn about Goddess Day and learn about exactly what it is. So World Goddess Day was actually created in 2014. It was created specifically for individuals who are worshippers of the goddess or practitioners of goddess spirituality. So I decided to create a little bit of a shrine here. You can see behind me I have all of my statues that I own of goddesses, and I'm going to talk a little bit about each of the goddesses in turn. But before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about the idea of archetypes. So an archetype is sort of a thought form that has certain aspects and elements to it that fit a certain model, a certain type, archetype. So this idea has also been popularized by Carl Jung, the psychologist, talking a lot about the idea of thought forms and how society uses thought forms and archetypes and this whole idea of sort of typal psychology. But in my tradition and the temple that I lead, we also agree that there are a series of archetypes. There are actually 7 archetypes. There are 4 masculine archetypes and there are 3 feminine archetypes. Now, they're also I can't say that this has been made official, but there's actually talk of a 4th female archetype. So the 3 female archetypes that we utilize in our spiritual practice are the maiden, the mother, and the crone. And each of these archetypes is connected to and relates with the whole understanding and the idea of the female divinity or the sacred feminine. This idea of the divine being not just masculine but also being feminine, being a female deity. And although it's not popular in most of Western religion, Christianity and Judaism, Islam, there are important females in each of those traditions, but to say that they're goddesses is not exactly accurate. Now, some people may consider Mary to be a goddess in the Christian faith. And so I have my Mary here. I apologize if it's a little blurry. So there's my Mary. This was given to me by someone that I was teaching Russian to. She was going to Russia and she was going to be there for a semester, and so when she was there, realizing how much I love anything to do with religion, she actually went ahead and purchased this for me from a monastery in Russia. So it is an icon of Mother Mary and the infant baby Jesus. So that is the first goddess that we speak of. A female, an important female figure that has provided a lot of lessons and acts on our behalf in a spiritual way. And some people have even said that as a way to reconcile the loss of female divinity during the medieval age and beyond, the Catholic Church may have adopted the image of Mary and placed her in such a high regard in such a way to sort of fill that void that many pagans had when they were converting to Christianity of a female deity, because all pagan faiths have a female deity that they worship and that they honor, at the very least one, if not many, different female deities. So speaking about the goddess generally, we realize that the divine and the universe could not have been created by a traditional man. And the reason for that is because we understand just in our natural life that there is no there has never been a man that has been able to give birth to life. That is something that is part of the woman's physiological makeup, and I wouldn't say that it's the woman's job, but it's certainly part of the female anatomy to be able to create life and to be able to incubate life and be able to give birth to new life. So to say that a male deity has been instrumental in creating the universe, for most of us, especially those that are goddess worshippers, we believe that that's not entirely true, that there is an element of spirituality which involves the sacred feminine, who is the creatrix of the universe, who creates from herself all that exists in the universe. So that for us is a very important element of the goddess spirituality, and understanding too that would relate, we talked about the 3 archetypes, that would relate with the middle archetype, the mother, the idea that there are certain female deities across all cultures that play this role of a female mother that is nurturing and is caring and is compassionate and attempts to bring people things that they need in their lives to nurture them and allow them to grow. So that is sort of the mother archetype in a nutshell. She provides us all that we ask for, and you can find many mothers on my shrine that I have here. So for instance, we have the goddess Gaia, who happens to be the patron deity of the 4 Pillars Proto-Temple, which again is the temple that I am the high priest of. This is our patron deity, the goddess Gaia. The other statue of Gaia is over here. This one was actually gifted to me. It was painted by one of our temple members and gifted to me for the purposes of devotion. This is a mass market reproduction of a design that someone made for the goddess Gaia. But if you look upon Gaia, you can see here that she does have a full belly, as though she is about to give birth, because she gives birth to all life on the planet. You can see that her breasts look to be very full, because she is depicted as being a nurturer. So from her breasts, she gives forth milk, which is used to sustain young and to help the young to grow and flourish. In her hair, you can see, it's kind of difficult to see here, but in her hair of this design, you can see all of the animals that have ever existed, almost as though her hair is sort of a tree of life that that sort of shows off all of the animals that have ever existed. You can see some dinosaurs, you can see what looks like a triceratops, and you can see a dolphin, and you can see a monkey, and you can see maybe an oarfish, you can see other primates, you can see a whale. All sorts of animals are in her, as part of her being. And then all over her skin there also exists all other animals that are sort of imprinted on her. I don't know how well you can see that. All sort of animals are imprinted upon her. So she is depicted as being the mother deity, the one who brings and sustains all of life. And that is one of the 3 aspects of goddess spirituality. The first aspect of goddess spirituality is that of the maiden. Now the maiden is, if you think about our lives as humans, and you think about the time of life that is often associated with a maiden, it's normally prepubescent, it's normally earlier in life. And think about how you may have been as a young child, or if you're a male, or if you're a female, think about how you may have been. Or if you're a male, think about maybe how your sisters were, or how some of your female friends were at that age. They were very fun-loving. They were very intuitive, maybe. They were very creative, and they wanted to create and show off things, and they were very imaginative, and they were very innocent. So think about some of the aspects or the elements of someone who is in that stage of their life as a young female, as a young girl, and all of the things that come along with that, and sort of prepubescent, maybe even just at puberty, when you're coming into yourself and you're coming into sort of this idea of womanhood and what that means and what that looks like, and maybe some of the experiences that you had when you've had your first menstrual cycle, or having that discussion with your mother and having her pass that knowledge on to you and leading you in sort of a sacred journey of what it means to be a woman. And obviously I can't really speak to that because I'm not a woman, but I hope you can understand my meaning in that. So cross-culturally, there are many different deities that fill that sort of archetype, or that type of being a maiden deity. I don't think I have any on my altar here, but I will show you this. So this image here is actually an image of all three goddesses. So you see in the middle is the mother, you see on the one side is the maiden. It's very blurry, I apologize, it is a little out of focus. You see there's the maiden, and the maiden actually is holding a bird, and she looks very inquisitive and curious. And then on the end you see there's the crone, who we're going to talk about in just a second. So you see this is the tripartite of all three of the deities, the maiden, mother, and crone, at the center of goddess worship. Now understand that not every division or group of goddess worship worships the archetypes as I've explained them, but suffice to say that the majority, I believe, do worship in this way and understand the goddess in sort of this triple aspect. So if you think about some of the female sort of deities that might correspond with the maiden, you might see, for instance, a goddess of spring, or a goddess of dawn, or a goddess of new life or new beginnings, as sort of fitting that profile. Sometimes you also find certain goddesses cross-culturally that may have been virgin goddesses for one reason or another. If you look at Norse mythology, for example, you'll see the goddess Iduna, who has the sacred apples and gives the apples out to the gods to keep them immortal. Or keeps them youthful and living forever. She could be associated with a maiden because she is sort of a young woman, and she's, I think she was married, but she does have sort of that element about her. For instance, also Artemis, who is also a young maiden goddess who was chaste. She was virgin. She didn't want to be married. So you find all of these different deities cross-culturally that sort of fill that role. I do also have here the goddess Gaia. I'm sorry, not Gaia, goddess Kuan Yin. And the Kuan Yin is a bodhisattva. She is sometimes depicted as the goddess of mercy in Chinese and Taoist faith. She's also depicted as being a bodhisattva, or a wisdom being in the Buddhist tradition, a saint of compassion. So she could be associated with the mother aspect, but I don't know that I would necessarily put her there, because she, although she is caring and nurturing, and her name means the one who hears the cries of the world. So all you have to do is say her name and pray to Kuan Yin and say, Kuan Yin, I need help. And she will come and save you from absolutely anything. There is a text, it's a sutra called the Lotus Sutra, and there's a whole chapter in there about Avalokiteshvara, who is Kuan Yin. It's the same deity. And it lists all of these circumstances in which Kuan Yin would come to someone's aid and save them. And so you have Kuan Yin as being a sort of savior deity who comes and saves you no matter what it is. And that sounds a lot like our mothers, right? We call to our mothers and we say, Mother, I need your help. Where's my mommy? I want my mom. So you see a lot of that in that. So you may associate her with the mother archetype as well, but she may also be associated with the maiden archetype because she was never married. She in some ways has this sort of elemental sort of innocence and purity about her, which you may also see with maiden goddesses. Of course, sometimes these are arbitrary distinctions and delineations, and it's really not necessarily important to categorize them in one way or another, but this one's certainly up to debate in my mind. If you have your own opinion about that, that, please comment and let me know what you think Kuan Yin's archetype is. And then you also, of course, find moon goddesses, and a lot of times sometimes depending on the phase of the moon will depend on what exactly the goddess is associated with. So if it's a goddess that's associated maybe with the full moon, would be more associated with a mother archetype, whereas someone being associated with a crescent moon may be more of a maiden or crone archetype, depending. This is sort of just a generic moon goddess, and sometimes people depict refer to this maybe as like Selene, the moon goddess Selene, or some others, and I believe Selene is a maiden, if memory serves me offhand, I'm not sure. But here is just another example of a goddess, so you can go ahead and take a look at that, sitting on a crescent moon. The final archetype of the goddess is the Crone Goddess. So the Crone Goddess is, if you think about women at the end of their lives, and when they're much older and they become elders, they physically are not fit anymore, right? So they cannot provide you the nurturing maybe that a mother could. They cannot provide you with that curiosity. The curiosity has left them, that twinkle in their eye has sort of left them in youth, because they're no longer curious. They've learned a lot of things, and they know a lot of things, and they have a lot of answers. So instead of being a goddess maybe that's associated with curiosity, you find that the goddess, the crone archetype, is more associated with providing wisdom, giving wisdom. Think about in today's culture, you find a lot of times in modern American culture, grandparents have a large role in helping to raise their grandchildren for one reason or another. And so think about the role that the grandparents play. They may not be physically able-bodied, but they're mentally and emotionally there to be able to emotionally withstand anything that's being thrown at them, being able to emotionally withstand some of the trials and tribulations that the younger generation, the grandchildren and children, are going through. But they also have the opportunity to provide that wisdom. So when you have a question about something, or hey, how are things done back in your day, Grandma? Why didn't you tell me about that? And so you have this opportunity to sort of gain that wisdom and that knowledge. Part of having that wisdom and knowledge is also having deep arcane wisdom and knowledge. And so you find the crone aspect of the goddess being more associated with things like mysteries, things like magic, things like sorcery or divination, things that are sort of occult or secretive practices or rituals or rites or anything like that that kind of come along with it. So the crone goddess gives us the opportunity to learn about ourselves and to learn about the world. And because they're so close to death, they have the opportunity to have one foot in the other world and have one foot in the present, giving us the opportunity to sort of see the best of both worlds. Maybe they have some deep intuition or understanding of the other world that we wouldn't otherwise get, because they're so close to that sort of reality. So the goddess spirituality is life affirming. It is promoting of equality between the genders. Goddess spirituality also gives us the opportunity to have empowerment for women. It empowers women to do things that they maybe didn't feel they could do. It gives us the opportunity to recognize the entire gambit of feminine development and feminine reality. Gives us the opportunity to see all of the things that we can see in the life of a woman, from birth to puberty to menstruation to motherhood to nurturing, taking care of the children or grandchildren. And then the succession of menstruation and menopause that happens. And for a lot of women, that period of time is when they believe that they become a crone because they are now sort of past that, and they're now moving into sort of the final phase of their journey. So it gives women the opportunity to feel empowered and to realize how sacred life is, and their lives are, and the importance of being in touch with their inner goddess and their sacred feminine. And this isn't just something that's associated with women. Men also have the opportunity to utilize this, because we have to understand that whether you're predominantly male or identify as predominantly male, or whether you're predominantly female or identify as predominantly female, you have aspects of both sexes in your body, in your being. You may be a macho man, but you also have, feminine traits as well. You can be emotional, or you can be sad, or you can have these personal experiences, or you can feel vulnerable, and all of these things that men, I think, generally in our culture don't want to discuss, or don't want to acknowledge about themselves. So we have the opportunity to look at all of that and realize the importance and the sacredness of our lives, not just as men, but also as women, and the whole sort of, gambit of experiences that comes along with it. So that there, in a nutshell, is sort of the understanding of, the goddess, Maiden, Mother, and Crone. This is sort of an homage to the goddess as part of Goddess Day. I want to share one final thing I did not share on my shrine, and then I'm going to talk for a moment about the fourth aspect of that. So if you look up here, I'm not sure how well, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. Give me just a moment. I'm getting a little close to you. Oops. So this here is, there we go. This here is the Buddhist deity, Green Tara. And Green Tara is, one of the other goddesses that I have here at home, and she is, there are many different stories about Green Tara, but she's generally believed to be the emanation of the Buddha's compassion. And so she has some similarities with Kuan Yin that I mentioned earlier, but she has some differences as well. So she's really, really fascinating. She is similar, like I said, to Kuan Yin in the fact that when you pray to Green Tara for certain things, specifically protection, things of that nature, she is very similar to Kuan Yin in the fact that she will also provide that. She also has a relationship to compassion similar to Kuan Yin, and some people believe that Green Tara is actually the emanation of the Buddha's compassion. There's a myth that the Buddha had seen something that deeply troubled him, and he was so overcome with compassion that he cried tears, and from one of his tears emanated the Green Tara. So there are many, many different Tara. There's actually 21 Tara. Some of them are associated with colors, like black Tara, green Tara, white Tara. And there's also a gold Tara, correct me if I'm wrong. But then they're also associated with other things as well. And there's a whole practice around, paying homage to the Tara in all of their aspects. So that's one of my, it's called a Thangka. It's one of my prized sort of possessions here is this Green Tara. So I'm so glad I was able to share that with each of you. Finally, I want to, I apologize. Finally, I want to talk about the fourth aspect of the goddess. Now, this was something that was recently sort of proposed by the leader of my spiritual tradition, the Crone Nativist Church, or Crone Nativist tradition. And she said, Maiden, Mother, and Crone, got it, makes perfect sense. So the maiden, let's just, for the purpose of this discussion, so the maiden goes from maybe birth until anywhere between 9 and 12, depending on when your first menstrual cycle starts. Then the mother goes from the time that you give birth, so depending on when you choose to be a parent, whether it's 16, 18, 25, 35, you become a parent. So let's just say for the purposes of this that you get pregnant, become a mother at 18. So you become a mother at 18. So from the time you're a mother at 18 until the time that your child is then an adult, you're the mother. And then after the time your child is an adult and they're, self-sufficient, they're moving on with their lives, you're no longer behaving actively as a mother. Obviously you still are, because you never stop being a mother, but you're not behaving necessarily actively as a mother. So you're taking sort of a passive role, allowing your child to sort of move on and grow up and be their own person. So from the time your child turns 18 until the time that you hit your menopause and you no longer have menstrual cycles, at that point you would be considered a crone. There's a big chunk of your life where you really aren't doing anything, at least in terms of the archetypes. You really aren't fitting into one of those three categories. So our first priestess, she suggested that maybe there should be a fourth archetype, and maybe that archetype should be the archetype of the matron. So someone who is no longer a mother, or maybe they never were a mother. Some women can't have children, so does that mean that they now automatically are like crossed out of that part of their life, or that aspect? Mothers, being a mother doesn't necessarily mean that I've had children. Maybe you adopted and then you're a mother. Maybe you care for your younger siblings as a mother might. So then you have to feel or act like a mother. There are many different elements to that, and that debate you can certainly have amongst yourselves or with me at a later time. But suffice to say that there's many different ways that being a mother or experiencing motherhood might come out in the life of a woman. But there's a large chunk of life that might not be accounted for. So again, the idea of the matron, this sort of matronly person that was not necessarily a mother, but is maybe still someone that you would respect, and someone you would look up to, and someone that would provide you guidance and wisdom in a caring and compassionate kind of way. So this sort of idea of the matron hasn't been fully canonized, to use that term, in the sort of goddess spirituality as far as I'm aware. Generally, it hasn't really been accepted by goddess spirituality. But it certainly adds an interesting layer to that whole idea as well. So that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all the information that I can think of at the top of my head. I have no notes. I have nothing that is helping to lead this discussion or this discourse. So I want to thank everyone so much for watching this video and sharing with me World Goddess Day. I would like, if you would be interested in maybe ending with a prayer. So take a moment to just sort of ground and center yourself, and we'll go ahead and do a prayer to wrap up this video. Holy and great Mother Gaia, you who are the creatrix of the universe, who shine down upon us, you who are the leaves in the wind and the birds in the soaring mountains, you who are the flowing waters that flow upon the earth and the mysteries of those waters. Goddess Gaia, I pray to you on behalf of my temple and on behalf of World Goddess Day, that you will shine down upon us and grant us your blessings. Continue to provide for us, we pray, Gaia, with all that you always do, those bounties that you give to us, and asking nothing in return. We ask that we will continue to live our lives, that we can give you praise and worship, that we can give you honor, that we can live with you in a symbiotic relationship and be able to provide for you the way that you provide for us. We ask for the end of the succession of COVID-19, of the pandemics that plague our world, and we ask for your blessings to continue with our lives in a positive way, in harmony with you, now and always. So mote it be. So thank you so much. I invite each and every one of you to celebrate World Goddess Day in whatever way is best for you, whether that be leaving offerings to any number of the goddesses, whether that be honoring your inner goddess with self-care and self-love and self-confidence, whether that be with honoring someone who is like a goddess to you. Maybe it's like your mother, or maybe it's a crone figure in your life who gives you wisdom and strength anytime you ask. So I invite you to celebrate this day in the way that is best for you. Thank you so much for watching. You're always welcome to search the Four Pillars Facebook page if you're interested in additional videos that I do. Until next time, signing off for now.